Welcome to Backstreet Gossip, news talk, current events, and political commentary with your host, Uncle Ronnie. And now here's your host, Uncle Ronnie.
Back, you notice there's three of us now, and boy, you better be here because that was Sonny Borelli, and anybody that knows Sonny Borelli knows he was a United States Marine.
That's right,
and
you got to listen to him.
We call him Senator Gunny over here, and so I know the reason you're listening now is because he told you to. At any rate, we're here with Mr. Ray Michaels is back.
Hello, everyone.
And I'll tell you have one of my favorite senators, and that is Wendy Rogers. Now, Wendy is, I don't know, we met at a Costco 10 years ago.
That's
at
right.
least 10 years ago. And she has the honor of being a woman pilot in the United States Air Force. She was, well, tell us, I think you were the first woman to fly huge airplanes into war zones.
Well, I didn't actually fly into a war zone because way back then,
We weren't at war.
women were not allowed to fly combat.
Okay.
And so the only aircraft that women could fly, and I graduated, got my wings in 1981, so gosh, 40 years ago.
You're not that old.
Yeah, it's amazing but true. I flew the C-141, which
That's
is
a big mother.
heavy jet transport, which carried 200 troops in the back or 13 pallets of cargo.
Ray,
or-
that is a big airplane.
It's a massive airplane.
Yeah. And other than that, women could also be assigned to the KC-135 tanker, which is still in existence today at Sky Harbor in the guard unit. So those were the two airplanes.
Well, we
that
have
a
another
woman-
member of the of our legislative team there that was a well, I think it was in the, I don't know if he still is. That's what's his name?
Travis Grantham.
Travis Grantham.
Yes, he flies the tankers.
Yeah, he flew
Yes.
tankers, tanker
He
aircraft.
does still. He's
Oh, is he
current.
still in the Guard?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. in the guard.
Fantastic. He's a great guy too.
Yes.
I really like. We have to have him on the show.
Yeah,
one of
he's a
these
good
Sure.
friend.
Yes.
Well, Ray, we wanted to talk to Wendy for a couple of reasons. One, she's very active, always has been, and she's just slightly opinionated.
No.
Well, you couldn't get behind that big plane unless you were. So
and I think she's want to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the audit.
Well, first of all, everyone, I'm privileged to have been elected. I represent a district in northern Arizona that cuts across 4 counties. And I'm from Flagstaff. I drove down this morning with my husband.
where are you? Yavapai, Coconino.
Parts of Yavapai, Coconino, Gila,
Gila?
and Navajo.
Wow.
So
that's a big area.
CD6 is, I believe.
LD6.
Or
right?
LD6, yeah.
So if you picture a continuum starting on I-40 from, say, Williams across to Flagstaff over to Holbrook, and then down through Heber Overguard, Snowflake Taylor, a little bit of Show Low, and then down into Gila County, Payson, Lake Roosevelt, Tonto Basin, and then over into the Verde Valley, and it's the 4 Cs as I call it, Cottonwood, Cornville, Camp Verde, and Clarkdale, and then up through all of Sedona, and then Flagstaff. So it's interestingly a little more Republican than Democrat.
And your seatmates are Brenda?
Yes, Brenda Barton and Walt
of course,
Blackman.
Walt Blackman.
Right.
We've had
Right.
Walt here many times.
Right, and he's over in Snowflake Taylor, I'm in Flagstaff, and then Brenda is down in Payson, so we have good coverage.
Good coverage.
Now, how long have you been in the legislature?
I'm brand new. In
Wow.
fact, I'm the only brand new Republican senator who's also never, ever been in the legislature at all.
Well, I remember seeing you on the campaign trail
Right,
a couple
right.
times
So
at the events.
It's very unusual, actually, to have a state senator come in who's never been in the state house before.
Right.
Usually you're moving from the House to the
Right.
Senate. She started up at the top. Of course, when you're flying at the top of the atmosphere,
Well,
you
I'll
start
tell you
at
a
the
funny
top.
story. So Sonny Borelli has been very good to me. We're both retired military veterans. And he said, Colonel, I'm assigning people their offices, and I assigned you a corner office. And I said, great, Gunny, I thank you so much. He said, it has no windows. And it's by the stairwell, so you have quick egress. So I said,
sounds like
I like that. And then I learned that it actually is bigger than most offices. So I'm happy there. And we have it decorated really well with pictures from the district. I'm adamant that it represent the district, which is northern Arizona, and there are 30 senators, but only 7 of us are from rural districts.
Right.
And of those 7, I mean, some of us are Democrats and Republicans. It's not all just Republicans.
Right.
So when you think about it, I have very few colleagues who hail from rural districts as I do. And I think from your last guest, Dave, you can sense that there's sort of a different flavor, maybe in a way a different ethos
Yes.
of those of us who are from the rural areas, because some of my colleagues can literally walk across their district in one afternoon.
And that's one of the problems when he was talking about the communities of interest.
Right.
The thing that comes to mind is Legislative District 1. Most of it is Yavapai County, but there's a little section right up here around Anthem
Right.
that is in Maricopa County. And because it is such a huge district, they can't even have their meetings. They have their meetings in Prescott, but the people down here don't want to drive all the way to
Right.
Prescott. So you actually have like 2 county chairmen, or not county chairman, but district chairman. One of them is in Yavapai, the other is in
Yes, and
Maricopa.
to your point, I do a lot of traveling. If you follow my Facebook, which is easy to remember, facebook.com. I haven't been kicked off yet either. Wendy Rogers,
How surprising.
Arizona.
But we have that honor.
So you said it was Wendy Rogers, Arizona?
All spelled out right. And if you follow my travels, for example, I was in Flagstaff let me think. I was in Flagstaff Sunday, and then I was in Show Low Saturday. I have been around to Joseph City. I've been to Payson several times, Roosevelt Lake, Tonto Basin. All those are areas in my district, and they normally don't have a state legislator come to visit.
Right.
But I will
It's
go.
such a huge area.
Yeah, and I'll go to, say, for example, County Board of Supervisor for that area, his meeting, or I'll go to a Republican meeting or something like that. So it's an honor to serve. I love every minute of it. Every day is new. And so the offering last week to go down to the audit to take a look, I jumped at the opportunity.
And our audience is dying to hear from them.
Okay.
Now, we do a lot of local stuff, but believe it or not, people pick us up. We have our friend Pasta from L.A. They pick us up. We have Golick that takes a lot of our stuff. And, of course, there's always our favorite, Liz Harris, picks up. And
Yes, Liz is a
across
stalwart.
across
Yeah.
the country. So a lot of what we're doing right now, people are wanting to know what's going on. And we know today that the Board of Supervisors, once again, will you tell us?
Well, that was interesting because I was in a closed meeting right before I came here, and President Fan herself said, "Isn't this interesting? The response from the Board of Supervisors today was leaked to the press 3 hours before they sought fit to send her the actual letter. It was, I believe, addressed to her." So you see a lot of duplicitousness. I went down to the audit last week to spend time with Ken Bennett, and unbeknownst to me at the time, I spent an hour and a half with the CEO of Cyber Ninjas. I just thought at the time he was this really smart, techie guy. Little did I know he was the CEO. And it was fascinating, and I made some notes. In fact, these notes were what I wrote, and then he said what I could say and not say, because I'm all about security.
What, on one side,
Yeah.
you can say this, but you can't say
Well,
that?
no, there were things that were X'd out, and now they've become public. But,
Open to the public.
But my point is,
Lay it
that
on us,
I
Senator,
come-
lay it on us.
I come from a military background, as you know, so I have an eye for detail. I have an eye for something as to whether or not it's secure, flying airplanes and dealing with a flight line and having to have a line badge and so forth means something to me.
Right.
And chain of custody is very important.
Oh, of
and
course.
so those are the two things, by the way. If I can jump ahead for a second, I talked with another colleague of mine who's been at the forefront of putting legislation forward so that we can fix these gaps in our election mechanisms
Right.
and procedures. And she was quick to tell me that I can relate to you that those are really the two biggest issues that going forward before we adjourn for the session that we want to fix.
So
And
chain
it's-
of custody
and security.
and security.
Right.
Now security is a broad subject. So what specifically?
Well,
in
what we
security?
saw and is now public is, first of all, chain of custody when a box of ballots was said to have, say, 200 ballots in it, and then the pink slip would say 200 or whatever, then they would get into the box and 200 were not there.
Yeah, there was 189
There might be,
or something
and
like
each
that.
box was a
And was-
disparate number.
And was this a seal complete,
And
or was
this-
it
the
broken?
seals apparently, from what I've read, were at the bottom.
They
of
had
some-
never been placed on the box.
Correct.
I have the fan letter.
Right, and so that is, I don't know if you call that security or chain of custody, but this is what I saw, everyone, when I went down there to the audit. And as opposed to what you're hearing on the leftist media, this is what I saw. When you would go down there and look out into the vast floor, you would see 3 different tables of scrutiny is what I would call. A green table, I think a yellow table, and a blue table. I can't remember if those were the 3 colors, but suffice it to say that each table was a lazy Susan, if you will, and then each of the 5 people had a lean back head book board that they could lean the ballot on, and the first volunteer would take the ballot out of the box, make sure it was what he thought it was. Then he would place it to the first person on his right, who would confirm, then the second person, then the third person. So each ballot would get 3 independent looks, and then it would go to the 5th person, and that person would put it back into the box into the order it arrived. And then that box of, say, 200 ballots would go to a table that was at the front, sort of where I was, standing outside a chain link fence with Ken Bennett looking out onto this floor. And there were these folks seated there who were then tallying a roster sheet as to how many ballots were marked for so-and-so and so-and-so. And one of my friends who I knew from Civil Air Patrol worked there, and that was a position of a little more import, a little more responsibility. By the way, all the people on the floor have been vetted very carefully, and they are people who were first responders or military because they've already had a background check.
Right.
And so this was just sort of a completion, icing on the cake, completion of their background check. So I talked to her, and then I think the most interesting thing to me was what happened to these ballots after that. They would go underneath a camera that had microscopic capability. And they would look at the paper of the ballot to see what kind of fiber
Wow.
it was. Was it wood fiber? Was it bamboo fiber? Whatever. Also, this camera, with its microscopic capability, could determine if the oval bubble marked for the candidate was filled out by a human or not,
Really?
because of it being indented into the paper or not. And then the other thing
Wow.
that it would determine was the alignment, whether or not it was a legit ballot because of the alignment of the
Right.
print.
Right.
And so all of these data points then would get collected and put into this massive rack of servers in the middle of the room. And
When you say servers,
a
are they
rack of computers.
tabulators or?
No, just a rack of computers to hold data.
Oh, okay.
And the total sum amount of data was a petabyte. Someone needs to Google that, petabyte,
So is
P-E-T-A.
that 1,000 terabytes?
Maybe? I'm not sure. Don't
Can we
quote
do that?
me.
Can
Yeah.
we do that,
Sounds-
Neil? Can you,
P-E-T-A byte.
PETA byte. PETA byte. See if it's a
What
1,000.
is it over there, guys? Figure out a
1,000.
potato bite.
Well, Senator, we just appreciate you so much because oftentimes you see people running for office and they get this cushy office and then they forget about their constituents and they just kind of do whatever they want. But here you are going to these rural areas. You live in a rural area. Now, I've lived in several rural areas. I lived in Wickenburg. I lived in Sedona, not just for a short period of time, but for years. And it's so different. And the way you interact is so different. And the way you rely on your neighbors is so different than living in a big city. And it's nice to know that you are actually representing your constituents. You are out there with the people. Now, for those of you, when you're explaining these things in such detail, we have a lot of people, they call into the show, they talk to me on the side, and they say, yeah, but you know what, this is just another audit. It's not really, we've had the DOJ come in, and they say that the security's not there, and attention to detail's not there, and they're not letting the Democrats be involved. What would you say to some of those people after witnessing this firsthand?
I would say that you can rest assured that this is done with absolute precision, scrutiny, the best level of security. In fact, Ken Bennett said the press complained that they could not come, and so they descended upon us. Of course, we opened it up to the press, and then he looked up to the balcony or the bleachers and said, of course, now that we've completely opened it up, there's only one individual up there.
Right.
And the check-in area, each worker works 5 hours, and then the next shift of 5 hours happens after that. They come in and have to be issued a line badge that day, and very scrutinizingly checked in a very comprehensive process. I would say to those who are the naysayers, what is there to hide? Let's do this.
Well, there shouldn't be anything to hide. We've
Right.
discussed this many, many times that, fresh air and the sunlight is the best disinfectant.
That's right.
If there was ever a problem, it needs to be brought out in the open.
And remember, this is coming from somebody who is in the military. They are used to the type of security going on bases, the type of checklist that you have to fly an aircraft, all of the details that the average person just working at a bank or working in a retail shop, they don't have to go through. But you have to go through all of these things over and over and over again and get checked. So if you're giving your stamp of approval, I'm putting a lot of weight on that because this is what you're used to.
I was very impressed. I was there for over 2 hours. And I asked the question, what is the difference between what we're doing here and what Maricopa County said that it did? And I'm going to read to you what the individual who I interviewed said.
Okay, pay attention. This is important.
He said, we're doing a full recount. He said, actually, the count results versus making sure it's the right software version. All the other two companies did was two things. They ran malware, and number two, they did a logic inaccuracy test, which can be defeated after a certain benchmark within that test. So he said there was no audit, a forensic audit done by those two companies. He said, we will provide you, when we're done, an official trail of what happened. He said, we're taking a close look at the actual, as I told you, the composition of the paper. He said, and he said, Wendy, you can quote me. He said, anomalies will abound, and we can legislate to fix these anomalies because, and then he had me put this in capital letters, every ballot must be accounted for, just like the family checkbook.
That's right.
And then he said, so for example, if you had 10,000 people who voted, there should be 10,000 pieces of paper.
What a concept.
And then there should be 10,000 tallies in the voting system. And then he said 10,000 posted in the official results. He said that's what you should expect. And he said this is how you would summarize. We will forensically audit every layer. We will look at the voter history, the door-to-door initiative that Liz Harris was involved in. We will count the physical ballots. We will analyze the paper material. We will do a forensic analysis of the voting machines. We will ensure the results match up across all layers. That is a forensic audit.
Yep.
Yes.
And we've been talking for months and months and months because the former recorder actually just arbitrarily printed what was it, 30,000 different ballots?
We don't know
the exact
it was
number.
over $300,000 worth of ballots. That was Fontes.
So
that he had planned to send to everyone, regardless of whether you asked for those ballots or not.
yeah, under nobody's authority, he just did this. So and I'm sure that this is covered in here too. But if you have a printer that prints 500,000 ballots, and 200,000 were cast, and 100,000 were spoiled, there should be the rest of them somewhere so that we can have them in hand. Otherwise, you're at a loss. And what he said, this is exactly what we've been asking for.
Right. And so, again, everyone, you have to have faith. And you have to follow the news sources that tell you the truth. And as I said, I'm still on Facebook, and I have almost 50,000 followers. I put up very late-breaking, updated information. For example, if I get a group text among us 16 Republican senators where President Vance says, get this out on the wire, I get it out on the wire. So facebook.com/Wendy Rogers, Arizona. By the way, there's no D in Rogers for Democrat. You got Rogers with a D down there. That's an old joke. Rogers, Rogers, Wendy Rogers, Arizona. And my Twitter is Wendy Rogers AZ. And my Twitter it's a little edgy, but then you have to push back. And you have to do what President Trump did.
She's been a warrior. You've been in the United States Air Force, which is the best there is.
And I'll tell you, we visited family over New Year's, and one of my family members said, but you don't talk like that in real life. I said, Twitter isn't real life.
That's right.
I am going to call it as it is.
Yes. Now, here's one of the things that I wanted to get into. We know that every step of the way, Maricopa County, and I know most of these people, as you do too, I'm sure, they've just dragged, they've slow walked, and what have they got those hide guys? I mean, come on.
We had Steve Chukri here. He sat right there, and he said he didn't know anything about it. Josh Barnett, who's going to be running for Congress, he was right here. He said, I gave it to you. I physically handed it. Well, we're going to check into it. He assured us that he would check into it. But it's very disappointing to know that a result of an election can come out and somebody says, no, we don't want you to look at it. We don't want you to give the ability to check that what we did is correct. Because you know what? We all make mistakes. Everybody does.
Well, and be very sure that the rest of the country is looking to Arizona. We are at the pointy tip of the spear. This is ground zero. If you had said to me, Wendy, in 2 years you're running for state senate, and did you know that not only Arizona will be at the epicenter of determining whether or not this presidential election in 2020 will be run properly, but it's the state senate of the state of Arizona that will be leading the charge to shine that light. If you had told me that when I began my run, I would have said, I can't imagine that.
Now, I look back at the 2018 election. You remember that because you were a candidate back then. I think they were practicing some deceitful activities.
I would not be
then.
surprised.
Because on election night, Republicans cleared the field. I mean, Republicans won everything. And then slowly but surely, as the next few days the leads disappeared and
Right.
the Democrats won, including, by the way, I might say, Katie Hobbs.
Yes.
Steve Gaynor won the Secretary of State the night of the election.
Right.
But slowly that lead began to dissipate. And quite frankly, I don't have any faith in that election either. Now, here's what we've got going on today. We've got, as you said, these batches that are supposed to be secure, Senator, 200 ballots in
box,
each box, and they were to be sealed. Were not sealed. The seals were found under the packages, so they weren't sealed. There were like 189, 181 ballots in, but they were marked on the control sheets that there were 200 ballots there, but there weren't. Where did they go? How did they disappear? Why weren't the seals put on? How did the boxes get open?
Well, not only that, but numerically, those little smidgens from each box add up to far more than what the race was lost by. And right now, the audit includes simply the presidential race and the U.S. Senate race. But I have called for every county should be audited.
Exactly.
And there is a move afoot to have another company in California do a more in-depth audit of all the races. And by the way, there are 4 companies right now that are involved in this audit. And I joke because Ken Bennett said it to me. But I said, oh, is it Cyber Ninja who is overseeing this whole layout and everything on the floor? I mean, it's just like poetry in motion. He goes, no, that would be the company called Wake as opposed to Woke.
You know, the thing is they have...
Ken is a great guy. He's been on.
We've had him here as well. And I've always liked Ken. I mean,
Yes.
I've known him for
He's a man of
forever and ever.
integrity. He's also a rural
That's right.
legislator.
He
He's
is.
from
Yeah.
Prescott. He's known.
Right.
He and Karen Fan have been friends their
For
whole adult
many years.
lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, you know, as I look at this now, there's some things here that have been... There's been... The one thing that's a question that I think they were dealing with today was the doggone routers. Well, we don't want you to have the routers because there's sensitive information on a router. And we've discussed this at length. And all a router does is it says, Ron, you're connected with Wendy.
Yeah.
And there's a record that says Ron's phone connected to Wendy's phone. It doesn't say what we talked about or
Well,
what
and
information
if
was
the
sent.
sheriff is worried about data points being shared, he's got his own problem.
He does. Well, we know that he does. You know, he's a Soros guy. And enough said. I won't put you on the spot with that.
Well, it makes you wonder, did he win? Or did Sheriff Arpaio win?
Well, I have some serious doubts.
I mean, I don't know. Sheriff Arpaio is a dear friend of mine. I talk to him regularly, and when all this came about, it made me start wondering.
By the way, I'm making an attempt to get Sheriff Joe here on Wednesday. You hear that, guys? Sheriff Joe Arpaio here on Wednesday.
I have his cell number if you need it.
I have his phone number too. Now, you know, he's getting older and he just lost his wife, so
Oh,
I
I
don't
know.
know.
It's
I
very
don't know
sad.
that he's going to want to.
He loves to stay in the fray.
Well, I'm
And-
making some attempts. I've made the attempt today, and I'm hoping
Yes,
that we can have him
he
here.
talks to me regularly, and he says, Colonel, you need to run toward the fire. Never run away from it. Yes, sir, Sheriff. And then when I got elected, he goes, Senator, Colonel, what do you want me to call you?
Wendy. You know.
I said,
But getting back to this thing today, I mean, we have this great problem where the board of supervisors again. Well, we're not going to turn over the routers. You know, you could sue us. We'll take it to court. This is ridiculous. I've never seen such a thing, and I have. And we can discuss this. You may not want to have an opinion on this. I have an opinion as to what went on. I don't think there was criminal activity by them per se. I think it was gross negligence on the part of the Board of Supervisors. I think they turned everything over to Fontes and Dominion. And we asked that question when Chukri was here. Did you do due diligence? How could the entire state of Texas say that we're not going to use Dominion equipment? The entire state, the largest state in the union, geographically and almost population-wise, said we're not going to use them. We don't trust them. And the state of Maricopa, a lot of people call it the state of Maricopa, even though we're a county, chooses it. Why? I mean, didn't a question come up, guys? Why is Texas not doing it, but we will? and I think it was all Mr. Fontes. I remember speaking to, and by the way, I want you all to know that last Friday I happened to call a couple of members of the Board of Supervisors, and they normally pick up the phone when they see my name on it because I've been friends of theirs. Didn't pick it up, and I asked them specifically, guys, give me a call. We'd like to have you on Monday night. We want to talk about this, and the public needs to know your opinion, not just what you're trying to put out through your attorneys and through the press, but really sit down here and answer the hard questions.
Well, I will be there tomorrow. And will they show up? It's anybody's guess. But I will be in the room. And you know,
What time is that meeting
I
at?
believe it's at 1 o'clock.
And we can
it's
view live, right?
live streamed.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Tell
here's
everybody.
another thing, Ray.
I want our audience to know how they can appear
Right,
live
but before
stream.
you do that, I want to say this. Pardon me, I've got a bad shoulder here. Yeah, thank you. The magic touch. The Board of Supervisors has this tendency to meet in executive session. What does that mean?
Well, I think that means it's not live
It's
streamed.
not open to the public. It's behind closed doors.
Well, we will see if they show up
now,
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Senator Karen Fan, this is going to be
She's
open
my
to the
hero.
public. It's going to be open to the public. And how can we watch?
Great question. I am not sure I know to watch the floor. It's azaudit.org.
But it will be televised. You can watch
Yes.
the
We'll see.
entire
Hey,
thing.
Neil, if you get a chance, can you just find out where that's going to be live streamed tomorrow? That meeting, that would be great. We'll let you know here.
Because
in just a minute.
this is the important thing. The public, once again, fresh air and sunlight
Yes.
always is best disinfectant around.
Yes.
Sunshine.
Yes.
Sunshine.
And you know what they say? The cover-up is always worse than the crime.
And I think there's a massive cover. I've seen numbers today. I don't even want to report them because I have trouble believing that they're. But I have heard that Trump had carried the state in a very, very big way. Now, is that true? I don't know. They're not releasing any of that information. So if this information is out there, it has been leaked. And as tight as I think Ken has run the show, Ken Bennett, I don't think that information's been released. And I don't think there are a lot of people that know it.
Well, the last I heard was that 500,000 ballots had been counted. Bear in mind, we have 2.1 million ballots, so roughly a quarter.
And
But
there's-
when they come back
and I think
after
there's-
the week hiatus, they
Yeah,
will
they're-
have
they're
more
stopped-
manpower to finish.
They're stopped now because,
High school graduations.
long before this was going
Right,
to happen.
right.
And see that once again, the board has this sort of been taking place at the recorder's
Well,
office.
it's
and
been
it wasn't-
orchestrated. They've known the time
I know,
frames and
and
everything.
they're slow walking everything so that the
Well, and
legislature will.
President Fan knows that every little thing we do will be subject to some kind of legal challenge. And as I've told many audiences, but for such a time as this, like in the book of Esther, that we have a Senate president of the caliber and of the strength of Senator Karen Fan. And again, she's a rural legislator. She's been a business owner. She's been a mayor. She is uniquely qualified to do this. She has a great sense of humor and personableness with people, but boy, she does not suffer fools lightly.
Right.
And she is running this with a spine of steel. And every day
I've been
I
very
have,
proud of her.
I
was
am
hoping
so
she
proud
would,
of her. She
I
ha-
was hoping she would not back down,
No.
and she has not
no,
backed down.
she is a woman
Kudos.
for the time.
Well, you know,
Kudos, President. Kudos.
Senator, you're exactly right. Everybody's watching Arizona. They
Right.
want to know what we're doing right here.
Because Wisconsin's going to start their own audit also.
Well, there's
think
4
so.
other states
Yeah.
now that are
Yeah.
taking our
Yeah.
lead. New Hampshire one. There's even some talk that maybe Pennsylvania will
Wouldn't that be
wake
great?
up.
You know, here's what I'd love to see. And you know, as an elected official, there's a lot of perks that you get along the way, and including the Board of Supervisors having their own attorneys at the expense of the taxpayer. But I would really like to see that if you don't follow along in certain guidelines from the legislature, that you're going to be personally liable for these attorneys' fees. Because as a taxpayer here in Arizona, I don't want to continue to pay for them to fight an audit to show what actually happened. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I think the players need to be accountable to the law
Exactly.
and to be held to the standard of the law. We are a nation of laws, and the rule of law should be enforced. And my colleagues and I get inundated with emails all day, every day, from not only Arizonans, but citizens from all over the country. And one of the biggest hues and cries is that these people be held accountable by the time we find out what really happened.
So
Exactly.
has that been talked about, or can you share that?
I think it has publicly, and I don't know exactly how the jurisdiction lines work, but there's definitely that
Friday
at the forefront.
Friday, I had breakfast with a guy named Andy Gould. He was one of the justices of the Arizona Supreme Court. You missed the breakfast.
Yeah, you didn't invite me.
Okay. Well, gee,
Next time.
What a put down. Okay, so anyway, it's always the second. Friday. It's always the second Friday. So I didn't know I had to. But here's the
I'm
thing.
just used to the wake up calls.
You
that
two
give
need to
me.
talk to each other more.
So, at any rate, he's running for Attorney General. He was a justice in the
Right.
Arizona Supreme Court, and he presented his case to us to support him for that position. And he asked for questions. Well, I raised my hand and I said, I would like to know, sir, as the Arizona Attorney General, when we will stop having this dual judicial system where those people that are in political office seem to be immune from anything that they do, and they always use taxpayer money to cover for the wrongdoing. When is that going to stop, and when are these people going to actually be prosecuted and sent to jail if they've done the wrong thing? And I could quote, for the last 4 years, we've seen it over and over with the president, where these people have done all types of things that were totally illegal, including Biden. I mean, these things that, and he just said, well,
where's the accountability?
That's the way it
Where
is,
is
but
it?
that's the way it is, and it's not going to change. But we've got to make it change. We can no longer allow our political parties to run roughshod over us. We don't have the smoke-filled rooms anymore, but now we have the digital world that
Right.
we can do
And
some strange
that's
things.
our biggest threat is cyber. But that's another show.
I hear some music going on. What does that mean? It must mean that Wendy's off to her dinner appointment.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Or the garage band is playing
The
again.
garage band? Okay.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming. My gosh,
Gosh.
this has been such a
We
pleasure.
are so
fun.
excited.
Best of luck.
I got to do this
And
with
you were
this hand, 'cause
you
I
were
got
really
the-
thrown into the
shoulder.
lion's den here in your freshman year as
Well,
senator.
it's
She's tough. I've
I
known
ask,
her for 10 years.
I
She's
ask
a
all
tough
my
cookie.
colleagues every day, is this normal? And they go, no.
Senator, would you please come back?
I would
And
love
also,
to.
just one last comment. Sine die. We need to make sure that
Yes.
the audit is complete before they.
The audit may not be complete, but as was expressed to me today, enough of the information gleaned from it in order for us to implement corrective measures will be.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
we need those corrective measures
Yes.
immediately,
Okay,
if
listen,
not sooner.
We got time here. Okay, you guys do not go away. Only the senator is allowed to leave the room, and you stick around. We'll be right back.